CM Sportsnet presents Sports Talk at Island Green.
Greetings and welcome to another edition of Sports Talk right here at the Island Green, live in Westminster on Carroll Media Center. Avery Newport, your host, back with you once again for another edition of Sports Talk at the Island Green, joined as always by my co-host Skyler Fultz, head coach of the McDaniel Green Terra football program. Skyler, great to be back here with you once again.
Absolutely. A little darker outside than we're used to.
Man, I was about to say, it's daylight savings time now, so we got, is it opposite of daylight savings time? What even, like, we took an hour out, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so it's darker now. Sorry, I've been dealing with this for forever, but the terminology still escapes me sometimes. It's dark. It is dark, and it is 5:30, 6 o'clock. Should still be light out, but yeah, it feels like it's midnight out here now, which is unfortunate. But it's prime fall season, Thanksgiving, a few weeks away. You know, we're getting into Christmas talk now. I mean, I'm seeing Christmas decorations in the stores now. Like, it's real late 2024, if you can believe it.
Elf was on TNT last night, just so you know.
Man, already they started with the holiday movies. Man, can't beat it. Well, we had a holiday of our own, I guess you could say, on the Hill this past weekend. It was homecoming at McDaniel. Homecoming football game was perfectly well attended, as we thought it would be. All the fans, all the alumni, the students were out in full force. All the decorations, just a wonderful festive weekend on campus at McDaniel. Unfortunately, your team lost at home to Ursinus. 42-0 was the final score in the homecoming game. Just quickly, right off the bat, give me your overall impressions of how the game went for you guys, some positives, some negatives, just your overall thoughts.
I mean, going into it, Ursinus is a really good team.
Yeah.
The new MPI rankings came out, and even though they're not in first in the Centennial, they're still highly ranked nationally in the MPI.
Yeah.
So really quality football team, but again, it's kind of the similar story. It's a tale of two halves, right? Going into halftime, it's a 7-0 football game. And when you're talking about going against one of the better teams in the conference, you can't really ask for a better start when you're trying to work things through as a young program. Come out in the second half, and again, offensively, we just couldn't sustain anything. Yeah. And it really put our defense in some tough situations, and those early first half drives where they were getting a bunch of fourth down stops and doing a great job really caught up to us in the second half, and that's really where they ran away from it then.
Yeah, exactly. The last couple of games you guys have played have been a tale of two halves, right? We've talked about that the last few weeks, how in the first half you stay close. It's a one-possession, maybe two-possession game at the half, and then it gets away from you in the second half, and this game was no different. It was 7-0 at halftime, and then Ursinus went on to score 35 in the second half to put it away. But you guys had them in the first half. It was a low-scoring defensive battle, just the kind of game that you guys like to play. And ultimately, you know, as we've mentioned, Ursinus was able to put together some good drives in the second half, make some plays defensively, and win the game. But what was the key to your success in that first half? Again, this game was scoreless up until the 3-minute mark in the second quarter.
I mean, it was simple. Bend, don't break.
Yeah.
I think we had a really good game plan going into it. And Ursinus was trying to figure out what were we going to do. Were we going to pressure them? Were we going to play man? Were we going to play zone? And Coach Piercy did a great job of mixing and matching things early on. And the guys did a really good job of, all right, they let one get away, but next drive, we got them to fourth down, and they're just too far away for a field goal. They're not going to punt, so they were going for it on 4th and 5, and the guys buckled down and made a play when they needed to. So the first half, the defense did a really good job of not letting any big plays occur. Right. Everything was just as substantial. They kept it in front, made a couple of plays here or there, and then they did a great job of getting off the field at the right time.
Yeah. I mean, this is an offense in Ursinus that can make every big play in the book, right? Coming into this game, Tony Holden was the leading rusher in the Centennial Conference this year, was approaching the 1,000-yard mark before this game even happened. Jalen Bradford is, one of the best quarterbacks in the conference as well. So this is a big play offense for sure, and the fact that they were only held to a single touchdown that they scored with 1:42 left in the half in the first half, I think is a major win for your defense. And, of course, the way the second half worked out, obviously the defensive stats don't look as great, but the fact that you were able to hold them to just a single touchdown and, you know, a slew of 3-and-outs and stops in the first half has to be a great sign. Again, we've talked about it, you know, a couple weeks here now. It's just being able to finish in the second half and get some sustained drives on offense. I want to talk now about the quarterback situation. I know I love to harp on the quarterbacks, and
like everyone in America.
you love to give me stuff for it, but I got to tell you, it's certainly one of the interesting storylines to follow with your guys this year. Jaden Booker was the starting quarterback this week, replacing Angel Granado Jr. in the starting lineup. What was the decision-making behind starting Booker in this game? We saw him play a little bit in the F&M game last week. What did you see from him in practice this week? What were some things that you liked, and ultimately what put him over the top in your mind to start him this week?
I mean, JB, he, like we talked about last week, right? He played it pretty well second half against F&M. And then going into this week, we said, here's the challenge to both of you. Right? I'm not going to declare one right now. I'm going to wait till the end of the week and see who prepares the best, see who practices the best, and really kind of put it in their court. And he had a really good week of practice. He challenged himself. We went back and he watched the most film out of anyone on the team. Like, he really put the work in to say, I want the opportunity to do it. So he had all of our confidence going into it. And I mean, if you look, I started the game with 3 straight passes because I basically wanted him to feel comfortable with it. And then through the course of the game, he played like a freshman, making his first career start. Right? There's a couple of plays he'd love to have back, and just try to get himself comfortable in it and knowing what he's seeing. And there are flashes of it where when you're watching the film, you're like, that's exactly what we saw in practice. And the next play is there's a freshman making a freshman mistake. Right. So you got to live with those things and hope. Like, I talked to him and Angel towards the end of the game, and I was like, I easily could have pulled JB and put Angel into the game towards the end. The game's already out of hand, but I believe that you can learn a lot of things when things are going wrong, right? In that instance, can he go out there and just keep battling and keep fighting? And then the last drive we were out there, he made a couple of nice plays. Yeah. So that's really what we were trying to do is, again, on offense, is try to start building some confidence, right? Yeah. We do a good job in practice. We go out there, we know what we're seeing, and play doesn't go our way. Like the turnover that led to the touchdown right away, you can't let your head fall down, right? Yeah, and exactly. There's still some of that kind of leaking in their minds that we have to get out of them and try to build and have some more confidence that just because one play doesn't go your way doesn't mean the next one's not. Yeah. And sometimes that's hard to get over when you're not having success.
Yeah. A couple things I noticed from Jaden in his first collegiate start was there were definitely times where he looked a little uncomfortable in the pocket. And I think you tried to alleviate those first game jitters by having him, roll out. A lot of designed rollouts, a lot of plays to get him out of the pocket, get him in space. But I think he was still just trying to adjust to just playing the full game and being the designated starter coming into the week. But as you've mentioned before, it's the game and experience, right? For a guy that's making his first collegiate start, just a true freshman this year, that those things are still going to happen. And against a great team like Ursinus, who's mostly known for their offense, but has a stellar defense as well, it's certainly tough to start your first college game against a great team like that who had just come off of their first loss of the season. I'm sure Ursinus was really motivated to get back on track and get into the win column. So the circumstances obviously were not ideal for Booker making his first collegiate start this week, but I still saw some positives from him on the ground. He had a couple good gains here and there, made a couple of nice short throws here and there too. So what were some of the positive things that you saw from Jaden in his first start?
Yeah. He never gave in. Like, the frustration was there. You could see it in his eyes. And I asked him, like, is this the worst football game you've ever played? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you're going to remember this, right? Every workout you have, every time you throw the ball during the summer, like, this is what you have to use because now you know what it takes to be successful, right? And he really came at it. Like, today we watched the film, went through the whole game, and he was engaged, asking questions, and that's what you want to see from a young guy, right? You don't want to see him shut down and kind of take it all in and really not still be yourself because he's as outgoing as they come, he's as confident as they come, and you want to maintain that no matter what happens within a football game, let alone making your first start on homecoming, probably in front of the biggest crowd he's seen in a while, right? It's a lot of little things that go into it. But, again, he's a competitor. I have no worries about that, him going forward. Yeah, no,
I think he definitely showed a lot of the flashes that we've seen from him in the couple of games that he's played this year. He showed some flashes against F&M. He had some solid completions and some solid runs this week as well. Obviously, the whole game didn't turn out the way he planned or the way you planned, but that's what happens. I think we've talked a lot about it over the last few weeks. It's just when you start a lot of young guys who don't have that experience, this is the kind of stuff that can happen, right? You make those big plays, but you also make the freshman mistakes. You you just don't have that game experience to lean back on yet. When you play against a great team like Ursinus, these kinds of things can happen. On the flip side, though, I think playing against a great team like Ursinus is a great stepping stone for JB to kind of get into that rhythm a little bit, because now he's got the experience of playing against a great team. So he can put that behind him and say, well, look, maybe I didn't have the best game of my career today, but it is the first start of presumably many, maybe for the rest of his career, and it happened against maybe the best team in the conference this year. So you get that out of the way right away, you're probably not going to play another team as good as Ursinus in the conference anyway. So you've got some positive things to build off of even in a loss. And I think that's what I've noticed a lot from your guys is that, yeah, you might be losing games, but there's never a lack of confidence or never a lack of doubt or belief that they can still go out there and compete week after week. And I think that says a lot about you as a coach and your staff, just keeping these guys, keeping their heads in the game and reminding them, look, there are some things that are just bigger than football. Like you guys, stay focused, stay composed. There's a lot you can learn from losing. I think I really admire that approach that you and your staff have taken with this group this year.
I mean, it was the first thing I talked to the guys about when we had our first team meeting, right? So I have like 4 core values I care about most. And the first one's positive attitude, right? Negativity, nothing good can come from it, right? All it is a waste of energy. Every day you have a finite amount of time and energy that you've been given. Yeah. Every ounce of it that you use for negativity can't help you get to where you want to get.
It's a waste.
Right? Yeah. So that was the first thing I'm really trying to instill in those guys. And the second one is teaching them how to respond, right? Because no matter what it is, if it's football, life, something bad is going to happen, right? So if you go into it with the right attitude and the right mindset, the only shot you have is to respond correctly, right? And when you say respond correctly, I don't necessarily mean doing the right thing over the wrong thing. It's where is your focus going to go? Right? Are you going to lower your head? Are you going to complain? What are you going to do? Right? Are you going to respond to it and try to push yourself forward? Right? And I have to remind the guys sometimes, I'm like, you just don't have a lot of snaps. Right? And even some of the older guys, you realize this is their 5th offense in 4 years.
Right. True. Yeah.
So it's hard to learn, right? Yeah. Different terminology, different techniques, different ways we communicate, all those little things. Some of these guys really are like freshmen, even if they're a 2nd or 3rd year player, because they've been trying to learn things across the board. And you look at what we did in spring, you try to accomplish some stuff, but it's just different. You're not doing 11 on 11. You're not hitting each other as much. So every single week, every practice, every rep is banking something for the future. And like I told the seniors, I'm like, unfortunately, I would love for you guys to see the benefit of what's going to happen, right? But the benefit you're going to see is the next time you come at homecoming, whether it's 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you're going to see the benefit of what occurred this year, right? And you really have to remind those guys. And it's an unfortunate thing because I've been there, right? Anyone that's played football, you know the time's coming where you're going to take your helmet off for the last time, and it's a really sad thing. You talk to those of us that coach, every now and then we'll put the helmet back on our head just to remember what it feels like. But you want to remind those guys that there's something special that is building, and you're a part of it, even though you might not be here for it physically in the helmet. But what happens going forward is because of what we're able to do right now.
Yeah, that's a great point, really is. And it is tough, as you mentioned, for that senior class because they've worked their butts off for years to be a part of this program and to build a foundation and a culture. And the fact that they won't be able to be here potentially when that culture comes and when those wins and success come down the road is tough. But again, football careers don't last forever. The average NFL career is 3 seasons, 2 seasons. So, it's especially true in college football for many players, especially at the D3 level. The professional prospects aren't there. So when your career is done in college, it's off to your next venture. It's typically not a football career after that. So, but I think that's a great point too. That when you come back and stay involved in the program after your playing days are over, then you can see the product of your hard work come to fruition in the future. And for those future guys, they will have a foundation that you built and that you were a part of, and that they're going to take part in that. And I think that's a really valuable lesson, and I hope that your team is taking that lesson to heart and realizing that maybe the success isn't here right now, but the things that you do right now will lead to success down the road for future generations of Green Terror players.
I mean, it's like any 18 to 22-year-old, right? They're listening, but do they really fully comprehend at the moment, right? It takes some time. It really, like, it's ironic. I'm sitting here and Coach Bassler sitting there, who's going to come on in a little bit, and he was one of my coaches. And again, you don't realize until you're older some of the things you hear, some of the things you listen, it doesn't really grasp into your mind, right? And you're just trying to get it into them sooner than later. And it's just that constant message over and over and over again for them to really then start believing in it, right? You can't change, you can't alter your message. It has to stay the same, and you have to be consistent with it over and over and over again, and eventually the light turns on and they start believing.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I'm 25 and I don't even comprehend everything all the time, so I'm right there with you. This is a message that I'm trying to receive. I think I've done a good job of receiving it so far, but wow, we've gotten very deep and philosophical already.
That's the way I am, though. So, I mean, you can talk about X and O's all you want, right? But when you're trying to build a football program, especially one that's had a lot more downs than ups in the last couple of years, you have to start at the core of it, right? It's not always X's and O's. It's getting everyone moving in the same direction, right? And it's hard for the guys to see that because they want to win. We want to win. That's why you play the game. But at the end of the day, are you doing the right things that are taking you in the right direction?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that need to happen before you can start winning, right? Like every successful college program in the country had a foundation, had something to build off of, and then potential recruits got to see it and then believed in it and then became a part of it themselves, and then future generations followed them. And it's all cyclical, I think, in a lot of ways. And you've got to start somewhere. You've got to build a foundation. And I think that's what you're doing right now with this program. You're an alum. You've got the support of the alumni base at McDaniel. I mean, shoot, you can just look out and see all the support that you got at homecoming this past week. I mean, tents were set up. You know, every Greek life organization was out in full force. I mean, I walked from the Gill Center to the football field to the press box at Gill Stadium. And just that one walk, just that short distance, hundreds and hundreds of people I walked through. And I saw all these different groups from all different walks of life here to support your program and here to watch your team play, even against a great team like Ursinus, a team that, you know, was probably going to win this game. They still came out and supported anyway and still showed that support. And I think they know, and you, of course, you know this because you're around the guys every day and you see the team every day, but even people outside of your close-knit group, your coaches and your players, can see what's happening here, can see that kids are buying in, kids want to be a part of this program, and that the wins and success will follow eventually if they keep following your advice and your tactics in the future.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things I want to say towards what you said. Like, you look at the development, right? We keep talking about our defense and how well our defense is playing. They laid the groundwork last year. And they struggled last year at points, right? And that benefit has led to the benefit that you're seeing on the field this year, right? Like there's no secret behind it. It's the consistency and development of it. But you're talking about the one thing I mentioned to the guys this week going into the homecoming game, they don't necessarily understand the history that exists, right? They don't necessarily understand the support that they see. Like, you go to the Hall of Fame dinner the night before the game, and I'm there, and it's two guys. One was inducted from 2001, the other was from the 80s. And it doesn't matter what decade, they're proud of wearing the green and gold. They're proud. Even went back when it was Western Maryland before it became McDaniel, right? It stays with you your entire life. I had a bunch of friends that came into town. Some of the guys said they hadn't been on campus in over 10 years. Right? They just wanted to be there. So it's something very special to be a part of. And it's tough when you're not seeing the success on the field, right? But can you see the forest through the trees? Can you see what we're working to develop? And the guys are really starting to see it, right? The younger guys, like we had our meeting today, I said, you got two things right now. One is you got 2 games left to play for these seniors who will never wear the colors again. And 2, these are the first 2 steps going into your off season.
Right.
That's the way you got to look at it as you're moving forward.
Yeah, these are all learning experiences, even for the older guys who have been here. Obviously for the younger guys, of course, just still getting their legs under them as college football players. But it's a learning experience for everyone. And no one likes to lose, of course. It's never fun. No one ever wants to lose. It's never the point
Ask
of
a Dallas
why
Cowboys fan.
Oh, wow. Brandon, our producer,
That's what we were talking about earlier.
Got
bad day.
A stray on air. Man, poor Brandon. Anyway. But you try not to lose, and you don't want to lose. But there are things you can learn from losing. And, of course, the losing won't last forever. And the next generation of players that come onto the Hill and join your program we'll hopefully get to experience a new culture that you've built and cultivated over the years. And I'm very excited for the future of this program. I know the wins aren't here right now, but they will be. And the support, even without the wins, is as good as it's ever been. And I'm very happy to see that. And you mentioned, too, the last 2 games of the season, your final road game coming up this weekend on the road at Salisbury. We'll go into a quick preview of your final road contest of the year. Salisbury is the 7th-ranked team in the country right now. The NPI rankings, as you mentioned, just came out, and they're 2nd in the country in the NPI, the most recent NPI rankings. So this is a great team on the road, a tough environment, and with one of the most tenured coaches in the country, I might say, too, Sherman Wood, who spent 26 years as Salisbury's coach, longer than I've been alive, folks. So that's quite a long time. So what are you most looking forward to about this road contest, and what's the game plan? What are you looking to do to stop this rushing offense for Salisbury, which is 2nd ranked in the country?
I mean, anytime you're going against the true flexbone triple option, right? There's not much of it left in the country, but you have to go back to your roots and play smart effort football, right? Like, you have to know what your assignment is, and at the end of the day, it's showing that you care about your teammates by being near the football, right? You follow your keys, and you have to gang tackle, you have to make the plays in space, and that really, you're just trying to slow it down. Right? You're trying to neutralize it and then not give up the big play, because they're not afraid to throw the ball at the right time, right? And again, maybe 13, 14, 15 passes a game, but they're not just throwing little hitches or bubbles, right? They're going to run the ball, and then they're going to try to chuck it deep. So those are the ones that you want to try to eliminate and say, can you go up and down the football field against us for 4 quarters? And that's how you're going to end up in a low-scoring football game.
Well, your defense has certainly shown a nose for the football. We've seen that all season. 18 combined turnovers on the year, still the best number of any defense in the Centennial Conference, and 9 forced fumbles. You had another one this past weekend against Ursinus. With a team that runs the true flexbone triple option like the Seagulls do, there's a lot of chances to cause some loose balls and to get some turnovers. So very excited to see how your defense attacks that offense, which can be daunting. I mean, you see all the rushing numbers. They've got nearly 40 rushing touchdowns on the year. Like, you look at those stats, and they might really stick out to you. But, again, your defense has shown a great nose to the ball. They've been able to stop the run in a lot of their games they've played this year. And I'm very excited to see how the defense can slow down this rushing attack.
Yeah, like we said the last couple of weeks, right? Can you step up to the challenge? You've been going against really, really good offenses. Now you're going against another really good one. It's just totally different than what you're used to seeing. Now, some of these guys, they saw them in high school. So they just got to go back to their roots and play the way that they did in high school, and play aggressive and get their nose on the football and really rally around each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, any final words for this segment before we send you off?
No, you were talking a little bit. I didn't get a chance to say because you moved on to Salisbury, right? Okay. You were talking about no one likes losses, but I'm going to leave you a little tidbit, right? I like to give you little tidbits.
Okay. Sure.
There are wins and lessons, never losses.
Skyler wisdom right there. We need to have a name for that. Yeah, we need to have like a Skyler's, I don't know, some word that
You're
we
the
can
sports
use.
Information guy. You come up with
All right, give me a week, and next week I'll have a little quote section that we can do at the end of each segment for you. But Skyler, you've been great as always. Thanks so much for coming on, and good luck this week.
Appreciate it, man. Go Green Terror.
Skyler Fultz, head coach of the Green Terror football program, my guest as always. We'll take a short break and come back for segment 2 with Chris Bassler, head coach of Westminster High School, former offensive coordinator at McDaniel, and one of Skyler's former coaches as well. He'll be our guest after this on Sports Talk at the Island Green.
Welcome to Island Green, Westminster. The Pub and Grill offers a variety of food in a family-friendly atmosphere. Live music, private suites, miniature golf. Learn more at islandgreenwestminster.com. Island Green, Westminster.
I'm Danielle Inglesby, and I interned at the Community Media Center during my senior year at South Carroll High School. I was interested in the CMC because of the knowledge and experience that I would gain, and to help narrow down my field for what I want to work in the future. During my internship, I learned how to operate graphics for New Blue for our sports productions and to edit various projects on Premiere. I recommend the Community Media Center for anyone interested in studio art because it definitely gave me an advantage for the future, and I learned a lot and had a ton of fun.
Hey there, I'm Pat Stetzer.
And I'm Michael Duffy.
inviting you to join us for The Score and more.
Each week we'll talk about high school sports in Carroll County. We'll share information about upcoming games, highlight coaches and athletes, and much more.
We'll even try to have a little fun along the way. Don't miss The Score and More podcast, presented by CM Sportsnet.
The Score and More Sports Podcast is available online at carrollmediacenter.org and on a variety of podcast channels.
Brought to you by Farmers and Merchants Bank.
Every Wednesday at CM Sportsnet, it's Game On. Tune in for a look at Carroll County sports scene, boys and girls soccer, high school football, and Carroll Link sports action. Hi, I'm Pat Stetzer. Join me as we preview upcoming games, talk with the coaches, and bring you exclusive reports you won't see anywhere else. Plus, each week we'll unveil CM Sportsnet's Athlete of the Week. Don't miss CM Sportsnet's Game On, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. We've got you covered.
We're back on Sports Talk at the Island Green right here on Carroll Media Center, live from the Island Green in Westminster. Avery Newport back for segment 2 of our show tonight, joined by the head coach of the Westminster Owls football team, Chris Bassler. Chris, thanks so much for joining us today.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
Chris, your team won the top spot in Carroll County with a record of 5-1 in the county, 6-3 overall on the year. So just give me a little breakdown of how you think your season went. What were some positives? What were some negatives? And overall, how do you think your team performed this year?
You know, this was a transition for us. And I actually think if you look at our record, we're a year ahead of where we probably should be. You know, we graduated some great players last year. You know, we lost Kyrie Walker, who was a reigning Offensive Player of the Year. Yeah. Casey Heisek, who was a reigning Defensive Player of the Year. And, you know, we came in with only 4 returning starters. And,
wow.
You know, to play the way we have, and then on top of it, you know, we've lost 4 guys to the year for injuries, and we actually went into the Liberty game without 7 of our starters due to injuries.
Wow.
Now, we got a guy back last week. We're hoping to get a couple guys back this year. So I think with all the adversity that our young team has faced, you know, I think that's the thing I'm most proud of is how well we've handled it, and the guys that have stepped in there have kind of had that next man up mentality and have continued to perform at a high level. Yeah,
it sure sounds like that. That's the result of, one, a deep roster that you've cultivated because you've been here for 6 years now, so you've had plenty of time to develop a culture and, you know, get some talented players into your system. But, again, that says a lot about the next man up mentality, right? Like, even with so many losses, you know, so many great players lost to injury this year, you're still able to have 6 wins and win the county championship. So tell me about the culture that you have at Westminster. You obviously have the best team in the county this year, but you've had some time to cultivate that culture and grow the culture at Westminster. You've been here for 6 years now. So tell me about what you've grown in your time as Westminster head coach.
Yeah, we talk about, you know, our program motto is spot the ball. You know, and what that means is that anytime the football is placed down, whatever 11 guys are on the field for us need to show up and play as hard as they can.
Yeah.
And we really take that mindset into the off season, into everything we do. And the other thing we've really told them is that every guy in our program is an Owl football player, you know, and that we expect them all to play up to our standard. And, you know, we've been fortunate to have a lot of success. You know, my 6 years, this is our 5th conference championship.
Yeah,
and,
right.
What we're hoping to do is to take that next step as a program.
Right.
We've made the regional final several times, but we haven't made it to the state championship game. And, we have 2 goals, a short-term goal and a long-term goal. And our short-term goal is always to win the next game.
Yeah.
And our long-term goal is to win a state championship. And,
Right.
No team in Carroll County has ever done that. And, we're very motivated year in and year out to try to become the first team to do that. And to do that, we really need to focus on that short-term goal, especially this time of year, where it's win or go home.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it's playoff season. Regular season is done. The talk is over. All the standings are complete. And the matchups are set for the Class 3A regional tournament, which begins this week. Your Westminster Owls are on the road at Rockville High School this Friday at 6:30. That's your opening game in the regional tournament, and you will face the winner of Linganore and South Hagerstown, depending on who wins in this opening game. So tell me a little bit about Rockville, what you've seen from them so far, and what your preparation has looked like going into the regional tournament.
So they're a good team. They're very athletic. They bring back one of the best quarterbacks in the state. He's a mobile guy. He's got a good arm. And it's funny, Skyler was talking about playing the triple option. They kind of run a version of that, and they use a lot of zone read with him running the ball and then the RPOs and things, trying to throw the ball to the flat. So, it sounds like we've been emphasizing a lot of things he was emphasizing today about how this time of the year comes down to the details.
Yeah.
And one play here, one play there can be the difference between moving on or, getting ready for next year.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that's the mindset you got to have, is that you do need to take it one game at a time. When you get into the playoffs, when you get into the regional tournament, I think, especially at the high school level, sometimes you've got those big rose-colored lenses, right? You always want to look forward to the future, and you want to see a state championship or a regional championship in your future, but you just got to start with the game in front of you.
Yeah.
And it's especially true with high school kids. I think they want to be able to see past those first couple of weeks, but you can't ever look past anyone, especially when it comes to the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, too, as like a head coach, you always want to have an eye for what the program is, right, and where it's going long term. But you really have to stay focused on what's right in front of you because, we have 14 seniors that Friday could be their last football game.
Yeah.
And we owe it to them and to the other guys on the team to give it our best to try to stay together. That's like I always tell the guys this time of year, we are fighting to stay together one more week.
Yeah, it really is because, again, as you mentioned, some guys might not play anymore after this week, depending on what happens, and you've got to be able to you really do need to think of it as a battle, right? Because you got to keep your season alive, and everybody's got to buy into that one mindset. But you've had successful teams in the past. You've had 2 teams that have gone to the state quarterfinals in 2021 and the next year in 2022. I know we obviously just talked about focusing on the present, not looking too far ahead into the future. But so far in your time with this group, do you think this team has a chance to go back to the state quarterfinals, to repeat that success?
Absolutely. I think when you look at a team, you want a team to be growing, and be progressing at week to week. And, I really felt like this is a team that has it, and we kind of hit a little bit of a bump with all the injuries. But I think, we've kind of moved past that now, and guys are starting to get experience in their roles now. And I think on any given day, we can be as good as anybody in the state. Yeah. And we've shown that this year and in years past. And, for us, it's just playing that consistent level of football that you have to this time of year.
Yeah. Well, certainly the best way for you guys to start off this regional tournament was beating Winners Mill the way you did, 41-8, the final score in your final regular season game. That's a great way to get ready for the regional tournament. So tell me about your thoughts from that win. How do you think it helped prepare your team for the regional tournament?
Well, anytime we play Winners Mill, they've had some good teams, and you throw the records out. Those kids grow up together. Right. It means a lot to everyone that plays in there. There was a big crowd there Friday night. And I think for us to put together a complete performance from the first play to the last was what we were really hoping for, and to kind of help propel us in. And it's funny, Pat Stetzer actually told me today, Jack Hitchcock rushed for 323 yards, which Pat thinks is the 3rd all-time in Carroll County history.
Wow.
So seeing that was pretty cool to be part of that, and and get the offensive line gelling. And Jack's had a great year for us. He just went over 1,200 yards. So, he's a junior, and hopefully he can keep it rolling the rest of this year. So
That sounds like offensive player of the year type numbers right there. That's really impressive. I mean, are you going to try and lean on that rushing attack against Rockville this week?
I mean, we have all year. We have a very good group up front. We've been very deep, which has been good because we've been hit by a couple injuries at the offensive line.
Right.
But it all starts with winning the line of scrimmage. It doesn't matter what you're doing, offense or defense. If you can't win the line of scrimmage, you're not going to win. And we've been very fortunate to have good players there on both sides of the ball, and we will certainly be leaning on them this Friday.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. I love this conversation about the current state of your team, but I want to talk a little bit about your background. Before you started coaching at Westminster, you were a coach at McDaniel for many years.
Absolutely.
And you coached Skyler, who is our current head coach now, but he was a player back when you were at McDaniel, and you got to work with him pretty extensively as the offensive line coach and the offensive coordinator for the Green Terror. So what is it like to see him, one of your proteges, one of the players that you coached, coaching now himself at McDaniel?
It's pretty special. Skyler, you knew back even when he was playing that he had a mind for football. And I think that's why he and I got so close, is you could have those conversations and you knew he was retaining what you were saying. And then when he got into coaching, we remained close, trying to give him advice and helping him where I could. And, one of the things now, along the way, I've transitioned from being the young coach to the older coach is, I have a lot of guys that are coaching, and, several members of my staff are guys that I coach. And it's just very, very special to me to see not only the coaches they're becoming, but the great people they are. Yeah. And, they're having successful families and all that. And it's just an awesome thing to see. And, I'm very proud of them, and I'm very proud of Skyler because, he's a special guy. And, I had 11 years on the Hill and a lot of great memories, and met a lot of great people. And, it's a place that can be special. And I think it needs someone like Skyler that has a vision for it and that is passionate about it. Yeah. And hopefully that'll translate down to the recruits, and he can get some of those guys in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked obviously in the first segment that you saw. I mean, I think, and I know that you can see it as well, that Skyler's really building something with this McDaniel program. And again, the wins aren't here right now, but they will be in the future. And I can see that the alumni are behind him, the fans, the students, everyone in our department is behind him as well. Like, we really see that he's got those leadership qualities. He's got the ability to take this program and make it into something special. And I think, having you as one of his former coaches, you can see it too. You're involved in the program. You can see it. Obviously, you've got your own priorities at Westminster right now, but I think from afar, you can still kind of keep an eye on what Skyler's doing. And the fact that he's building something where people want to be a part of it and be involved, that's got to be a really great feeling to know that he's being, in a position to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you heard him even tonight. He said the word program probably 10 times. Teams win and lose and fail. Yeah. Programs are built to last. Right. And to do that takes time. And that's just, he's in the beginning phases of that. And, I would agree with what you said. The wins are going to come. Yeah. You have to do the little things right and focus on building that foundation strong, and that's where he is right now.
Yeah. Well, you've also had a number of seasons at Westminster. We talked a little bit about it earlier, about building a culture. What does it take to build one? How long does it take in your mind? I mean, obviously, in the first year, you're still just trying to figure things out and, get a little rhythm underneath. But how long in your mind does it take to really build a culture and build a program? And is it the same timetable at the high school level compared to the college level in your experience?
I think it's a little different in that, like, high school, we don't recruit. Right. We get what lives in our district. Right. And, where in college you can go out and try to get the guys that fit your scheme or fit what you want.
Sure.
And I think in high school, your culture is year to year. Yeah. And it's really about learning the personality of your team and what each individual team needs. And as a coach, being able to adapt to that while still holding on to those core values. And, it could happen in a year. It could, sometimes it takes 3 or 4 years. And, right. I came into a situation in Westminster where they already were winning, right. And my job has been trying to take it to the next level, right. Whereas you look at what Skyler's doing, Skyler's really trying to build something from the ground up. And that takes some time.
Yeah, of course. And, there is a difference. That's a great point that you mentioned that, in the high school level, you don't really recruit. It's just the kids that live in your district, that live in the area that you recruit to play for your team. But in college, it is different. And I think when you inherit a winning program, the timetable isn't as long, right?
Yeah.
Your goal is just to maintain that level of success and build upon it when you inherit a winning team. But if you inherit a losing team, it's the opposite. Then you really do have to build something from scratch and try and start from the ground up and work your way up. And I think that's a tremendous challenge, especially when you're trying to, get recruits to buy into what you're trying to build. There are a lot of different things that work into that strategy. So I'm really glad you brought that up. That's a really interesting point. Chris, this has been a great talk. I'm really, this has been wonderful just to learn more about your team and your mindset as a coach. But I want to take it back now to your current team right now, looking at Rockville in the regional tournament. I've asked this for most of the people in the high school scene that have come onto our show the last few weeks, but with your time that you've spent with this group, regardless of whether you win or lose this weekend, what would you look back on this season and say, this season was a success? Is there any measure of success that you have that if you look back at this team and this group, you look and you say this was a successful season in my mind?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for us, it's how we've overcome the injuries, you know, and, most teams, you lose 7 starters, it's going to make for a rough second half. And we really haven't missed much of a beat. And, we're going to bring 18 starters back next year. And, for me, that one hand excites me, but on the other hand, I'm really trying to stay in the moment, and do everything I can to win now because, none of us know how many years we get to coach. Right. And anytime you make the playoffs, you have a chance to win. And I think this team has as good a chance to win and compete for a state championship as any team I've coached. And, that's the only thing we're focused on right now is beating Rockville. Yeah. And, and then hopefully getting to stay together one more week to play the guys from Ligonor. Yeah,
exactly. Wow, this has been, between our talk now and between Skyler's talk at the beginning, this has been a very philosophical episode today. Lots of life lessons, lots of, bigger than football moments I feel like we've had on the show more than in the past. But Chris, this has been a great talk, great getting to know you today and know your program. And this is, it's been a great season for you guys, overcoming all those injuries, still to be in the position where you are. Really a testament to your team's work ethic and to what you've built at Westminster. And definitely going to keep an eye on your game this week at Rockville. Wish the best of luck to you guys in this game and for the rest of the season moving forward.
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Chris Bassler, head coach of the Westminster Owls high school football team, our guest in segment 2. We'll take another short break and come back. For segment 3, we'll talk Ravens, we'll talk Terps football, Maryland basketball beginning as well. Maryland sports at large is next on Sports Talk at the Island Green.
Welcome to Island Green, Westminster. The Pub and Grill offers a variety of food in a family-friendly atmosphere. Live music, private suites, miniature golf. Learn more at islandgreenwestminster.com. Island Green, Westminster.
I'm Danielle Inglesby, and I interned at the Community Media Center during my senior year at South Carroll High School. I was interested in the CMC because of the knowledge and experience that I would gain and to help narrow down my field for what I want to work in the future. During my internship, I learned how to operate graphics for New Blue for our sports productions and to edit various projects on Premiere. I recommend the Community Media Center for anyone interested in studio art because it definitely gave me an advantage for the future, and I learned a lot and had a ton of fun.
Hey there, I'm Pat Stetzer.
And I'm Michael Duffy, inviting you to join us for The Score and more.
Each week we'll talk about high school sports in Carroll County. We'll share information about upcoming games, highlight coaches and athletes, and much more.
We'll even try to have a little fun along the way. Don't miss the Score and More podcast presented by CM Sportsnet.
The Score and More Sports podcast is available online at carrollmediacenter.org and on a variety of podcast channels.
Brought to you by Farmers and Merchants Bank.
Every Wednesday at CM Sportsnet, it's Game On. Tune in for a look at Carroll County sports scene, boys and girls soccer, high school football, and Carroll Link sports action. Hi, I'm Pat Stetzer. Join me as we preview upcoming games, talk with the coaches, and bring you exclusive reports you won't see anywhere else. Plus, each week we'll unveil CM Sportsnet's Athlete of the Week. Don't miss CM Sportsnet's Game On, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. We've got you covered.
Join us as we honor local veterans with a special all-day broadcast. Starting at 9 a.m., the Community Media Center will feature interviews with local veterans.
You have a duffel bag on your back in your front, and you got the drill sergeant yelling at you. I remember thinking, what did I get myself into?
But you got a Navy Cross.
Yeah, well, I wasn't trying to get the Navy Cross.
My father volunteered for Vietnam at 18, and he served in uniform for 42 years. We'll actually be burying him in Arlington next month.
They offered me the choice to learn either Russian, Persian Farsi, which is the language of Iran, or Arabic. And I chose the Persian Farsi language because of all the conflict going on at the time.
In some respects, I'm the same guy that joined the Navy in 1979, but I'm a different guy as well.
Hear these and other stories from Carroll County service members on our special Veterans Day broadcast on November 11th.
Back here for Sports Talk at the Island Green. Just me at the table for our final segment of the evening. Maryland sports at large, really the entire sports scene at large, I'll go over with you. As we wrap up the show here tonight, I'm not really a fan of the it's already, 6:45 and it's pitch black outside, daylight savings. We did have a beautiful sunset tonight, though, I got to admit. Really, really pretty. Up on the hill. But anyway, daylight savings time. We've got another hour in the morning, so is what it is. It's officially winter, fall time. No more no more warm days on the calendar for the rest of the year, but November and December means it's football and basketball season. Maryland football on the road up this coming week on the road at Eugene, Oregon, to play the number one team in the country, the Oregon Ducks. That's going to be a fun one to get into, but we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. Maryland basketball back as well, football and basketball back at the same time. It's a glorious time of year. But first, we'll go over some Ravens talk. The Ravens winning big on their home turf at M&T Bank Stadium against the Denver Broncos, 41-10, the final score over Denver. The Ravens win their 6th game of the season. Lamar Jackson was 16 of 19, 280 passing yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, and had a perfect passer rating of 158.3. The 4th game in his career where he's had a perfect passer rating. That's the most of any qualified quarterback in history. He's also the second he's also second in the league in passing yards this year with 2,379 on the year. My biggest takeaway from this game is that Lamar, to me, looks like the MVP favorite once again. He's in charge of the best offense in the league in terms of total yards, rushing yards, and total points. The Ravens are tops in each of those three categories this year. They're averaging over 31 points a game. That's the second best total in the league behind the Lions. So the offense is absolutely clicking. The Ravens have had the best offense in the league all season long, and Lamar has been at the controls from game one. He looks just as good, if not better, as his MVP self from a year ago. I think in a lot of ways he wasn't as statistically dominant last year as he normally has been, but he was the best quarterback of the best team in the NFL last year, and I think for that reason, for the most part, he won that MVP. But he clearly, to me, looks like the most dominant player in football. And you could make an argument that Jaden Daniels deserves some MVP nominations. Of course, always Patrick Mahomes, even though he's not having a great year this year. He's got more interceptions than touchdowns. Josh Allen, Jared Goff, all of whom are at the top of the list for the MVP conversation right now. But in my book, it's Lamar. It's got to be Lamar. He's just been the best quarterback in football this year, in my opinion, and he's been in charge of the best offense. Not only do the Ravens have a great passing attack, because he's second in the league in passing yards, but Derrick Henry is the league's leading rusher, and the Ravens' rushing offense is the best in football as well. The Ravens can beat you on the ground and through the air, and especially that they did this well against the third-ranked defense in football. Denver came into this weekend with a third-ranked defense in the league, and the Ravens absolutely blew the doors off of Denver. And I was really impressed by how the offense continued to shine, even against one of the top defensive units in the league. Really impressive performance all across the board. Derrick Henry, another 100-yard game for him, 2 touchdowns on the ground, and 106 yards rushing for the King. He also became he had 100 touchdowns rushing in his career. I think that's correct. Yeah, he scored his 100th career rushing touchdown in this win against the Broncos, becoming just the 5th fastest player in history to reach that mark. He scored 100 touchdowns in his career in just 128 games, the 5th lowest total in league history. Another impressive day for Henry. Zay Flowers was great as well. 5 catches for the Ravens' leading receiver, 127 yards through the air, and 2 touchdown catches for Zay. 53-yard grab, just a thing of beauty. I was a little bit surprised to see the lack of involvement that Deontay Johnson had in the Ravens' offense this week. Was not targeted. Obviously didn't make a catch because he couldn't when he didn't have a target in the game. But he was acquired in a trade from the Carolina Panthers this past week, and you'd figure that he might take a little bit of time to adjust to the offense. This is a new offense with new verbiage. That's going to take some time for him to learn all the terms and develop in the system. But he didn't have a single target on the day, played pretty sparingly on the afternoon. I thought maybe he might see 1 or 2 balls thrown his way. But also, just given how the game turned out, the game script really didn't require him to receive that many targets in this game. The Ravens controlled it really from the second half on. They didn't need to throw the ball that much. Lamar only threw 19 times in the game. So not really all that surprised, come to think of it, to see that Deontay Johnson wasn't that involved in the offense. But he will be in the weeks ahead. Of course, the Ravens will have the Bengals at home on Thursday Night Football this week on Amazon Prime Video. The Bengals have won 3 of their last 4 since losing to Baltimore at home back in Week 5. That one was a barn burner in Cincinnati, 41-38 the final score. The Ravens winning in overtime on a Justin Tucker field goal. Joe Burrow threw 5 touchdown passes in the win this past weekend at home against the Raiders. 41-24 the final score, the Bengals winning in that one. Since he's 4-5 on the year after such a terrible start to the season, Burrow and the Bengals have sort of rebounded a little bit. They're still a game under 500, but they certainly want to get back to that 500 level with a win on the road against their division rival in the Ravens. And the Bengals-Ravens rivalry has been a great one the last couple of years, ever since Joe Burrow ascended to that top echelon of NFL quarterbacks. The Bengals and Ravens have had some really fun, competitive games, and I certainly expect this one to be right up there with the last handful of matchups that Cincinnati and Baltimore played against each other. Of course, they played in the playoffs a few years ago as well in the wild card round in 2022. They played a great game earlier this year. Their matchups last year were really fun as well. The Ravens winning on the road last year in Cincinnati back in Week 2. So lots of fun matchups over the last few years between the Ravens and Bengals. And I'm not a Bengals guy, I admit it. I'm a Ravens fan through and through, so obviously want to see the Ravens pull this one out on Thursday Night Football. This is also the debut for the Ravens of their new alternate helmets, which are purple in color, and they've got gold streaks going down the middle. Got a nice chrome finish to them as well. I'll be honest, I think it looks kind of gimmicky. I'm not really a big fan of these new alternate helmets. I like the classic black helmet with the Raven logo on the side. It's been their helmet for over 25 years at this point. It's a great classic look. And I don't know, the purple kind of looks a little arena football-ish to me. It doesn't really look like an NFL helmet, in my opinion. But maybe that's just because they haven't worn it in a game yet and it hasn't had a chance to grow on me. I wasn't a big fan of the Color Rush uniforms the Ravens unveiled when they first started rolling those out around 2016, 2017. But eventually those grew on me too. So I'm sure the purple helmets will have their chance to shine, and I might change my feelings on them in the future. But for now, I don't know, kind of gimmicky, not really a huge fan of the purple lids. But we'll see. Ravens and Bengals at the bank Thursday night at 8:15 on Prime Video. Ravens are 6-3. They're a half game back of the Steelers in the AFC North standings. Pittsburgh had a bye this week, so the Ravens will have some chances this upcoming week to really take a stranglehold in the AFC North if they can take care of business against the Bengals. But that's enough Ravens talk for now. We'll switch gears and talk some Maryland football. The Terps had a bye this past week, but they're on the road in Eugene, Oregon to take on the Oregon Ducks, the #1 ranked team in the country in Division I college football. That one will kick off at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Big Ten Network. Man, Oregon is a machine. They were able to knock off the defending national champions, the Michigan Wolverines, on the road in the Big House, 38-17, the final score of the Ducks winning on the road to maintain their unbeaten record. Dylan Gabriel, 19 touchdowns, 5 picks on the year, was the Heisman favorite for a good chunk of this season, but has now been surpassed in the Heisman odds by Cam Ward, quarterback for Miami, and Travis Hunter, of course, the two-way star for the Colorado Buffaloes. Gabriel still has the third best Heisman odds as it stands right now, but if he has a good performance against Maryland, and he almost certainly will, the Maryland defense is not great this year, to put it lightly. The defense gave up 48 points in their last game, which was a road loss at the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Not a great performance for Maryland, coming off of a homecoming victory against USC. The Terps are 4-4 on the year right now, but they're 1-4 in the Big Ten. But they have had a win against a Pac-12, a former Pac-12 team coming into the Big Ten this year. They did beat USC at home for homecoming, so Maryland does have a track record of beating former Pac-12 opponents in the Big Ten this year. So we'll see. Of course, Oregon is the #1 team in the country. Oregon obviously having a much better year than USC is having. Dylan Gabriel is a Heisman favorite. He's right up there to be on the podium in New York come end of the year. But, yeah, Maryland, it's just been tough to watch that defense. They've really, really struggled, and especially tough to see them struggle this way on that defensive side of the ball because the defense has been the team's strength the last few years. Of course, Talia Tagovailoa was the quarterback. They had a great passing offense for the last few years, but the defense was really strong, and they were able to keep their footing in the Big Ten for the most part. But now the defense is absolutely the team's Achilles heel, without question. Billy Edwards has been pretty solid as the team's starting quarterback this year, 13 touchdowns and 6 interceptions on the year. But those turnovers do really seem to cause problems for Maryland. You got to admire Billy. He's a gunslinger through and through. Reminds me of Brett Favre or one of those guys who just lets the ball fly. He's an absolute gunslinger at his heart. Throws the deep ball really well. He throws the ball 30 to 40 times a game. But with that many pass attempts, you are going to have interceptions. And Billy does have a tendency to turn the ball over in some inopportune times. So, first-year starter, those things are going to happen, obviously, but you would like to see those turnovers come down just a little bit, especially against the undefeated #1 team in the country in Oregon. Ty Felton is still 6th in the nation in receiving yards with 907 on the year. He's been a really pleasant surprise as Maryland's leading target on the offensive end. So I think this game certainly has a chance to be a high-scoring shootout. Again, Oregon has a tremendous offense led by Dylan Gabriel, and I think Maryland can compete. They can go toe-to-toe with Oregon and score with the best of them. It's just the defense has got to do a better job of stepping up and shutting down the Oregon offense. But Maryland on the road at Eugene to play Oregon, the #1 team in the country, on Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That game will be on the Big Ten Network if you want to tune in. Maryland basketball begins today. Both the men's and women's teams will open up their season. The women will open up on the road, make a short trip up the road to Baltimore to play the UMBC Retrievers. That one starts at 7 p.m. And then the men's team will host the Manhattan Jaspers in their season opener, also getting started at 7. The women's team was a surprise, I would say, last year. They certainly were not statistically the best team in the Big Ten, but they ended up winning a couple of games in the Big Ten tournament. They made the NCAA tournament, keeping their consecutive tournament appearances streak alive. Not one of Brenda Friese's best teams last year, but she was able to squeeze out just a little bit more out of that team than maybe they were expected to, and they were able to make the Big Ten championship and a really impressive postseason run for the Lady Terps last year. So I'm hoping that Maryland can keep up that success they had towards the tail end of last year. They got past some of their regular season problems and were able to get it done in the playoffs. So hopefully the women's team can continue that momentum into 2024-25. The men's team, rough season for the men last year. Really did not perform to their expectations. Of course, the men's program has pretty high expectations year in and year out, and they just didn't quite live up to them last year. They were a very middle-of-the-pack team in the Big Ten, but the fortunes could be changing for the Terps this year. Derek Queen, of course, one of the top high school recruits from a year ago, is going to be the starting center for the Terps. He's already got some NBA promise. He might be a first-round pick in the draft come next year, so he's certainly one of the most hyped prospects this Maryland team has ever seen come into College Park. He's going to play a huge role right away. Julian Reese also returning to the lineup this year, coming back for another year in College Park as the starting power forward. So the two of them are going to form an absolutely formidable duo, and they're going to eat up some rebounds in the post and score a lot of points for Maryland. Maryland, I think, is really going to focus a lot of their offense this year in the low post, close to the basket. They were not a great three-point shooting team last year, and I think that, unfortunately, will continue this year. But they're going to rely heavily on that low post offense, getting points close to the basket, offensive rebounds, hard-nosed, smash-mouth, that kind of game, I think is really going to be Maryland's strength this year. But both the men's and women's basketball teams for the Terps will get their seasons underway tonight. And that's mostly going to do it for our segment here tonight. Before we go, we'll give you a little bit of a preview for these high school football games that are coming up in the regional playoffs this weekend. Of course, we talked with Coach Bassler for Westminster High. His team is on the road at Rockville in the Class 3A regional tournament on Friday at 6:30. Other Carroll County teams in their regional tournaments, Manchester Valley at Sherwood, also in the 3A tournament. Francis Scott Key at Century, two teams in Carroll County. They'll face off in the Class 2A 1A tournament. South Carroll at Liberty playing as well in the 2A 1A bracket. And Winners Mill at Williamsport. So all those teams in postseason action this weekend in the regional tournament. Good luck to all of them. Of course, we love to represent all the teams from Carroll County. So the best of luck to our Carroll County teams in the regional tournament this weekend. Also, one more thing before we wrap up the show tonight. I got to give a shout-out to the Shepherd Rams women's soccer team. I'm a Shepherd alum, very proud Shepherd alum. They won the PSAC East Division Championship this week for the first time in program history. Women's team, when I was a student there at Shepherd, was not very good, but they've turned it around in a few years. They've won a program record number of games this year, and just had to give them a shout-out on the air. Best of luck to the Rams as they are the PSAC East champions in women's soccer. That's going to do it for our show here tonight. Thanks so much, of course, as always, to my guest, Skyler Fultz, for coming on to talk some McDaniel football with us this evening. McDaniel, of course, on the road at Salisbury, the number 7 ranked team in the country in Division III football. That game's on Saturday from Salisbury at 1 p.m. Thanks also to Chris Bassler, head coach of the Westminster Owls, for coming on today. His team on the road at Rockville in their opening game in the regional tournament. Best of luck to Coach Bassler and the Owls in that game. It's been a great show. Love to talk to both of the coaches and get some more of their insight into how to build a program, all those sorts of philosophical questions. I feel like this is a very deep episode that we've had here today. So really appreciate their insight coming on here today to talk about those two things. But that'll do it for our episode here today. Signing off from the Island Green in Westminster, I'm Avery Newport saying so long. Bucks and Chiefs on Monday Night Football. It's going to be a great matchup, a Super Bowl 55 rematch from Kansas City. Go watch it. Go enjoy it. Go watch these high school playoffs this weekend here as well. We'll see you next week. Good night. Thanks for watching.